On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, our favorite Kryptonian show is getting a little spicy, not so feel good anymore. We're going to be talking about My Adventures with Superman, episodes 7 through 9. Right after these ads, we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation. A conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. We're your hosts. I'm Zuhair and
And I'm J Scotty St. Clair.
And as I said at the top, things are getting very spicy. Like, it was just like the weekly feel good show, and we had cute stories, and we enjoyed the action where it came, but now we have cliffhangers. Things are getting intense. How you feeling about the show? This is a good chunk of episodes we're covering at once.
Yeah, so when we first started covering this show, I went on record of saying, like, this might be my favorite interpretation of Superman ever, like, favorite depiction ever. And now that we're, like, getting towards the end of the season, nothing has changed. I continue to love this show. I'm delighted by this show. I love this interpretation of all of these characters, and it continues to be one of the shows I look forward to watching most every week. And full transparency, there's sometimes, like, doing this podcast, I'll rewatch episodes of certain shows, and, like, don't get me wrong, I love them on the first watch, but sometimes it does feel like a little bit of a chore to have to rewatch them in preparation for a podcast. That is never the case with My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah.
I always enjoy doing a second viewing just to pick up on all the little things that I missed out on. So clearly, I am still really digging it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I remember when we were recording last week, we mentioned episode 7 as just kind of like, man, we know we said we were going to do 3 episodes, but this is one that really need to talk about. And then
Sure.
we saw a part 1 and a part 2, and just like, oh, things are getting, oh.
Yeah.
Like, I typically don't have the time to rewatch because I've showed like what my weekly slate is, but
Yeah.
with the fact that with these little recaps, like, the scenes just keep popping back into my head, and I'm just like so excited to relive it and talk about it. And I'm always just telling people, it's like, bro, you gotta watch the show. It's so good. Like,
Right.
I try not to overhype things, but like, give the DC love where it's deserved. This is it.
For
This
sure.
is DC properties that deserve love.
Yeah. This is one of the best. If by some miracle you're listening to this podcast and haven't watched the show somehow, watch the show, because we're being pretty spoilery right now, but trust and believe we will be getting super spoilery before too long. But before we do that, a couple of quick things to talk about.
Yeah, I definitely
you
wanted
want
to
to
hype things up before we brought it down a little bit. Then we're gonna bring it right back up.
Yeah, well, speaking to that, we have two things to address here. One is a little bit of sad news. The other one is kind of some housekeeping for the podcast. So I guess we'll start with the bad news first and then continue our upward trajectory here. Not that these episodes aren't, rife with their own conflicts. But yeah, it's sad news in the world of animation and voice acting. Arlene Sorkin, the original voice actor for Harley Quinn, the one that originated the role on Batman the Animated Series back in the early 90s, passed away on August 24th at age 67. So I do not believe that a cause of death has been revealed at this point in time, but that's neither here nor there. 67 is kind of on the young side, but thankfully she has an incredible body of work, and that all her fans can kind of go back and celebrate and revisit. But I do want to, offer condolences to her friends, her family, her fans, and just really voice some appreciation for the work she did as Harley Quinn, because I love Margot Robbie's interpretation of Harley Quinn. I'm looking forward to seeing Lady Gaga's interpretation, Kaylee Cuoco on the Harley Quinn animated series. Like, they're all doing great things, but Arlene Sorkin and the voice she did is Harley Quinn, and everything is kind of like paying homage to what she did there.
Yeah, Kevin Conroy passed away last year. Arlene Sorkin this year. Just everything from that show was iconic. And for her to be the first one to voice this character, it's not very often that we get a new character within animation or live action media that makes its way into the comics and becomes a staple and becomes a part of the foundation of iconic heroes, despite like all the people that we've had throughout the years. So for her to portray that character and give it light and have so much of a legacy for people to carry on this character. Like it's just a sad day
Mm-hmm.
for understanding like what she did and the legacy that she's leaving behind.
For sure, she will be sorely missed. All right. And in the other piece we have here before we get into my adventures with Superman, rather, wanted to address a piece of feedback that we got. So I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, so we got feedback from Andre, and we're gonna get a little more into it when we watch it. But there is a movie that's dropped, Ruby X Justice League Part One. It
I
has
think it's the
definitely
other way
been
around. Justice League X Ruby.
Justice League X Ruby.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that's been on our list, and this week I will actually be flying to Dallas, so it's going to be on my downloads and things to watch on my flight. So we plan on syncing up and doing a review of that too, because I remember just watching the character trailers for Ruby back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a show that I finished, but it was an artistic style and definitely action choreography that I really really appreciated. And when I saw that there was a crossover, I definitely was excited. So I have no excuse for taking as long as I have to watch it, except dying at work. But that is definitely something that we're going to be hitting sooner or later, and we're going to have all the chats about it.
Yeah, so thank you for the reminder there, Andre. We didn't forget about you and wanted to let you know we got your feedback. Just hold off and we'll have some reactions for you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we got that Justice League movie. We got My Adventures Superman, Harley Quinn, like all the DC animations getting love this summer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was originally kind of disappointed that what if the second season continues to get like pushed back. Like we never got an official release date, but we do like
Mm-hmm.
it's like end of the year, like most anticipated for the coming year. And I think like 2 years in a row I put What If season 2, but with the amount of DC animated content we've got, I'm kind of like
Yeah.
a little grateful. I'm like, all right, what if you can hold off for a little bit longer? I got plenty to chew on here.
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of chewing on, not necessarily something you chew on,
Uh,
but it's a stretch. It's a
those
stretch.
popsicles are coming.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, not so much chew on, but something to sip on. It is still
Yeah.
very hot outside. Even on the wonderful days that it's raining, the humidity is killing you. The water is literally evaporating from your skin. So you got to make sure that you stay hydrated. And the best way to do that is with Liquid IV. One stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. The result of an extensive R&D process to perfect the flavor and efficacy, Liquid IV combines science-backed zero-sugar technology with the brand's commitment to delicious real flavor. No artificial sweeteners and zero sugar, with the proprietary amino acid allulose blend for a sweet taste without the calories of raised blood glucose levels you get from sugar. Contains 8 vitamins and nutritions for. Man, I was just thinking it's the best one that I've done, and I messed up nutrients.
You psyched yourself out. You psyched yourself
I
out.
was like, all right, I got through the hard part, and then I slipped on the easy turn.
Mm.
Contains 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness, with 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks.
Yeah, they're also non GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. And that makes me think like 70% of our bodies are water and 75% of our planet is water. So you got to stay hydrated, people. And Liquid IV just makes it that much more enjoyable of an experience. You get something tasty and something that is benefiting societies and cultures all over the world. So they partner with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions that help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in more than 50 countries around the world. And you can get 20% off when you grab your Liquid IV hydration multiplier sugar-free or any other variant at liquidiv.com and use code STAYWHELMED at checkout. That's STAYWHELMED. Stay whelmed at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code STAYWHELMED at liquidiv.com.
I can't stress enough how genuine we are with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I sincerely love Liquid IV. Like it's badass.
Yeah. it's a lifesaver with how hot it's
Mm-hmm.
been. Not looking forward to the heat in Texas. What is
Mm.
it? It's like 100 degrees on a good day, like a nice chilly day, nice brisk 3 digits.
Whew.
Yeah, your boy's gonna be needing it.
Makes me think of that SpongeBob episode.
I
Water!
need water, Sammy.
Water!
I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it. I need liquid IV.
Yeah, get on it, Liquid IV. That's a crossover that's
Where's
just
that name?
begging to happen. All right. Okay, so with that said and done, let's get into the reason we're here. My Adventures with Superman, kicking things off with episode 7 titled Kiss Kiss Fallen Portal, which I guess is like a play on words like Kiss Kiss Fall in Love, but it also makes me think of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that Robert Downey Jr., Shane Black, Val Kilmer movie from like 2007, I want to say.
Hmm.
I have to look that up and see if I was right, but I feel like I'm pretty close. Anyway, after Clark shows Lois and Jimmy his spaceship and clarifies his incomplete alien origin, Clark and Lois plan their first date. However, he is interrupted by Mr. Mixie Pitlick, a multiversal imp who deceives him into helping him steal a recorder from a museum on Earth 1, revealing Clark is from the planet Krypton in the process. Meanwhile, Lois and Jimmy are recruited by the multiversal League of Lois Lanes to help them stop Mixie's Pitlick and Clark. Suspicious of their intentions, Lois searches their files, stumbling onto the redacted File X, which I have to believe is a reference to the X Files. I really hope so. But anyway, upon finding them, the League attack Clark while Mixie Pitlick hijacks the League's vessel and travels to their headquarters with the recorder and Lois's help. As Lois steals the original File X, Mixie's Pitlick retrieves his hat, regains his full strength, and causes chaos until Superman distracts him, allowing Lois to depower him and Jimmy to restrain him. While the League arrests Mixie Spitlick, oh, I was doing so good. And then Mixie
Tough
Spitlick,
one.
Jimmy's counterpart, Jelana, secretly brings the interns back to their native Earth 12, where Clark and Lois finish their date. Following this, Lois opens File X and finds recordings of an evil alternate universe Supermen and a sample of a green crystal the League used to injure Superman.
Have you seen? And this could have been what you were referencing. Auron High School Host Club.
I do not know what that is. What is that?
The title is a reference to the opening theme of Oron High School Host Club's Sakura Kiss, which famously starts with the line "Kiss, kiss, fall in love."
No, I had no idea what that was. I stumbled across that because it just made sense to me. Fall in portal, fall in love. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to give you some validation, and then I just got curious where it
Okay.
came
I,
from.
I appreciate it. I still feel validated even though I don't know what it is.
Yeah, apparently
Yeah.
it's from a manga
Okay.
originally serialized in 2002. So I guess it has a anime. 26 episodes aired in 2006.
Okay.
Well,
Nice.
yeah, gotta
But
listen to that later. I'm curious now.
yeah, it's interesting that this title took influence from anime because the series is obviously an anime in its own right, being
Mm-hmm.
animated by Studio Mir rather out
Mir,
of
Mir,
Mir Mir
MIR.
whatever. Yeah, out of South Korea, I believe it is. So
Yeah.
one other thing that kind of stood out to me about this episode was how, so I've seen a few different versions of Mixie Spitlick, or Mixie as the show calls him. That might be easier for both of us here.
Yes.
But his character design was like the most anime inspired thing like we've seen in the series for me. Just the interpretation, and like he
Mm-hmm.
was exactly what he needed to be. He was an imp, but to that end, he kind of reminded me of like a character you might just see right out of Dragon Ball Z. Like he would,
Yeah.
stand right next to King Kai or any of those like, otherworldly creatures from that show, and I don't think he would
Yeah.
stand out at all. It was a great character design.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. My biggest point off of this is I'm definitely on the record and saying how exhausted I am with multiverse. So when we were leaning towards, a council of Loises, I was like, oh boy. But they
Yeah.
actually did do a really good job with it. It was fun. it was one of those things where it's like we're using it for this episode, but it doesn't necessarily need to be an ongoing thing.
Sure. Sure.
So it worked for what they were going for, but I did cringe a little, and I was like, "Come on."
I think it's a fair point. The multiverse is all the rage right now. Like everybody has a multiverse. We're seeing a lot of stories about the multiverse, but I do feel like they took a fresh approach. Like especially
Yeah.
like I think focusing on Lois and allowing it to like provide so much character development for Lois and have her kind of question her abilities and her relationship with Clark. Like I just thought it was really, really well done and did
Hmm.
enough to like, change up the formula to where I was really engaged. And there's been a number of episodes this season. I've liked pretty much every episode, but as it stands right now, this might be my favorite episode of the season so far, just
Okay.
because like it did a lot of heavy lifting. Like we got so many references. Like don't even get me started. Like that the helmet of fate. Like I'm sure we're going to talk about everything we saw, but even on top of that, and like the nods to all the other animated series and Superman as a crab, like that was hilarious. But even apart from that, like I feel like this episode did a lot of heavy lifting. Like this series is an origin story,
Hmm.
but it's being very careful about not to be like tried, and like it's being cognizant that like so many of us are pretty intimately familiar with the origin of Superman, and it's trying to present it in a way that's still like engaging. And the fact that like the first time we really see kryptonite in its full form and like hear the word krypton, it's like Mixie
Hmm.
just drops those things like so casually. Like it's a
Yeah.
really interesting way to introduce it into the continuity and the canon here without being super expositional. And it's like I just really appreciated the way that was done and how a lot of these like staples of Superman and who he is and his world, how they're being introduced in pretty novel ways.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons that it works for this show in particular is because there's so many different types of DC content coming out simultaneously that
Hmm.
we're already switching like between the Flash movie and watching Harley Quinn and watching Justice League and Ruby and this. So like
Right.
to have an episode that just like addresses other characters like isn't weird for us who are constantly consuming DC content in different formats anyways. So
Yeah.
for them to just touch on that for a quick second and then go back in. And like you said, it was a very unique way of like bringing stuff that's very relevant to the story, but the whole
Okay.
multiverse thing doesn't have to carry the rest of it. I think that was the most important part.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And like as you were talking about that, it kind of brought something to mind, and I kind of want to talk about the Flash. So I'll provide a spoiler warning for the Flash if you haven't seen the Flash yet. And I'm on
It's on
record as
Max.
like, yeah, yeah, it's on Max of as of the time of this recording, just brand new to Max. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check it out because I did like the movie for the most part. But I was listening to another podcast and I heard a really interesting conversation, and it kind of like it's not competition or anything like that. It's support all creators, but they made and it's just kind of reinforcing how for me how this episode and this show did the multiverse right and like did those homages and those cameos to where they weren't like it was nice. It was like those of us that are indoctrinated were like, hey, I recognize that version or that version.
Mhm.
Whereas like so again, spoilers for the Flash here, but so they have this sequence at the end where Barry is, in the Speed Force and the whole multiverse is kind of being presented to him, and you see these universes kind of collapsing in on each other and colliding, and they use that as an opportunity to do a bunch of cameos, like to varying effects because they don't use real people; they're all digi doubles, and
Mhm.
some of those people have not been around for a long time. So the I guess the quality to which it done is up for debate, but the podcast I was listening to, the point that they made is like you get these cameos for all these beloved characters and these versions of the characters, but they're presented as like a something you don't want to see. It's like these universes are crashing into ours. Like we need to get rid of them. And like in a lot of cases, they're just standing there doing nothing. Like the Nick Cage Superman cameo is like the one exception, which is my absolute favorite. That actually got like an audible like reaction and cheer out of me in the
Not
theaters.
ready for that.
Yeah, yeah. But so it's like they kind of made the comparison where it was like an in-game showing all these characters like that was earned and like so much had built up to that the making of that, whereas like DC was like, well, we want that. How do we make it happen? Oh, we just show the characters on screen. People will catch up.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, but you present them as like an actual problem that we want to get rid of. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool to see them on screen. It's like, no, they're the conflict. They're the problem. Get them off screen. Get that universe
Yeah.
out of here. They're not helping. They're not assembling to solve our problem. But you know,
And to that point, I guess that was kind of why Crisis on Infinite Earths was so fascinating,
hmm
was because like there was like the Robin from like the original TV series was in it, but then you had like characters from Titans, and it's like there was the people who were like being threatened, and you got to see like a little bit, and then like Barry Allen from the Flash series like shows up, and so it's like you could see like who was threatened by it and who was actually helping from it, and you had the people from the other
hmm
shows and the other multiverse, and the shows I think did a really good job with it and a really fun. Like when they popped up, it was genuinely excited, but again with that movie, it was just a little to that point. Like, okay, see what you were going for.
Sure.
And we mentioned a lot like on our Flash to Flashpoint Paradox comparison, where it's like,
hmm
my thoughts were just that I was just upset that it had to be rushed and that they couldn't give it the
hmm
time because of opinions and this and that. But
Sure.
coming back to this, it was cool seeing like all the different versions of Lois and the fact that Jimmy had a version of himself that understood him and saw him for who he was, and
Yeah, that was
all
great.
that fun stuff. Like they just made it a delight. Like I don't think there were
Yeah,
like too many characters aside from the Doctor Fate helmet that I recognized. There was a couple of things like in the cases and stuff, but overall it
sure.
was just kind of like they did it in a way where even if you don't know what they're talking about, I think like the original Lois Lane from the Superman series was the only one that I like really recognized.
Sure.
But outside of that, it's just kind of like you don't even need to know them to just kind of appreciate the diversity of like what they come up with for that for that headquarters.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and I absolutely did love the one variant of Jimmy that we got to see, Jelana, and how she went like on her expositional tirade about this like telepathic unicorn, and like her delivery was just like so enthusiastic and just like Jimmy. It was like Jimmy has found, you know, his equal, and so yeah, I loved all those interactions. It was like I kind of alluded to, like using this as a vehicle to have Lois kind of question herself, and there was a moment where Mixie said something to Lois, like I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was pretty like insulting to her. It was like, out of all the Lois Lanes, like you were the one that was left on the ship or whatever. But she uses that as an opportunity to like show her mistrust for the other
Mhm.
Loises, and then he's like, oh, you're kind of like Lois Prime. She was the one that
Yeah,
didn't trust anybody else. So it's like, I know which Lois you are. You're the fun one.
yeah. And it was after the other Lois that says that like not all of them get recruited. Like you need to be special to
That's
stand out.
Thank you. That's what it was. Yeah, it was more
Yeah,
her dialogue than Mixie's, where it's like, yeah, you're not league material, but you are enough like us to where you could be a problem. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah. Oh, one line of dialogue that Mixie had that I absolutely loved is when he left Lois in the headquarters to go off and find his hat. And he's like, this will be more fun to see you figure these things out. I'm not going to give you all the answers. And he's like, here you go. The knowledge of the multiverse at your fingertips. Like, the way he delivered that, like, I love that. The voice actor was really, really spot on.
Yeah, it was a really fun episode, especially with how amazing Clark Kent's performance was. Like we give all the praise to Jack Wade every week.
Sure.
Also, because it's the only name I remember, because I'm really bad with names. But for him to for Mixie to be so dynamic and exciting and fun and la di da, and for Clark to still genuinely be concerned with like where's Lois and why am I here, and like not clicking that this guy's a villain and he's actually doing the wrong thing and he's been duped, and
Right.
to have that balance and still every emotion be relevant to whether it is tension or fear or excitement or comedy. Like it never
hmm
felt like it was like forced to flip from one to the other. Like it switched like that and they felt
Yeah.
great every time.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the way that was presented because I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the comics or anything like that, but I've been exposed enough to know that, Mixie Spitlick is usually presented as like this trickster, and like
Hmm.
the way Superman always defeats him is not with like brute strength or brawn, like he has to outsmart him. So I
Yeah.
really appreciated when like Mixie said something to the effect like you can't hurt me, you can't touch me, and then Superman was like, no, but I do have one more trick up my sleeve. And then again, it was like just speaking to like our trio here. Lois is the one that reaches through the portal, grabs his
Hmm.
hat, and then Jimmy helps to restrain him. So this very much, it's kind of like to your point, like the best versions of Superman are these ones that aren't like all powerful. Like
Yeah.
his villains get the upper hand on him from time to time, rather. But the other thing you brought up was speaking to Jack Quaid's performance and the nuance that's there, and that made me think of like in the beginning of the episode. So Lois and Clark are finally a thing, and they're going to have their first date, and to just see them both like have
Oh
this
my
like
god, that was
obsessive
so
compulsive.
cute.
Yeah, it was like they are made for each other. They're like, and Jimmy's like, I'm gonna go to Lois's where it's not so weird. And he gets in, and he's like, oh, she's doing the exact same thing.
His delivery on everything is so great, and I love how like snappy the animation is with everything. Like it's not like a smooth motion. It's like the frame actually goes from like looking one way to the other, but it just works so well with just kind of like how jittery everything is in this show.
Yeah. And I love how Jimmy, he like, it would be very easy for him to be kind of like this annoying third wheel, but like now that he had that arc and like the last few episodes we talked about, like he sees what his friends are doing, and then he just kind of like excuses himself. And I do think I can't remember if it was in this episode or one of the later episodes, but he's like he sees that he should excuse himself from them, but then he can't help but peek back around the corner and like give Clark the smile and the thumbs up, like, hey, best wingman ever.
So cute. I love every second of this show.
Yeah, likewise. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up about this episode in particular?
Just that I had no idea who Mixie was
Oh,
throughout this
really?
episode, so I like your
Okay.
insight of just comparing him and just kind of like how he just met the standard of like what little bits you knew about him.
Yeah. And my kind of takeaway is like, so from what I do know about Mixie, is he's like a fourth dimensional being. So I think my interpretation is like we did get the information that like this show is taking place on Earth 12. So I think I'm kind of like my takeaway is like there's only one Mixie Spitalik, and the way that he
Mm.
can present himself is, you know, he can portray himself however he wants to. So we've seen some really goofy and like comical versions in the past, but yeah, this anime version worked really well for me.
I like it, like a lot.
Cool. So I guess we shall move on. If you want to tackle the synopsis for episode 8.
Eight. Episode 8, Zero Day, Part 1. The General uses shock collars to forcibly recruit Livewire, Energang, and Heatwave into assisting Slade and Ivo capture Superman. Meanwhile, after developing super hearing and hearing everyone in the cities crying for help, Clark runs himself ragged, helping everyone, and soon becomes sleep deprived and weakened. When Gotham Gazette journalist Vicky Vale arrives to cover his activities, Lois is starstruck to meet her, only to be disappointed when Vale runs a biased story defaming Superman as a menace to gain a promotion. Superman saves an invisible Mist from being hit by a truck, but accidentally causes an accident, turning public opinion against him. Mist says Task Force X kidnaps
Siobhan.
Siobhan, and Superman offers to rescue her, only to be led into a trap and attacked by the group. Though he holds his own despite his weakened state, Superman is eventually knocked out by Ivo via his upgraded parasite armor and Livar. The General stops Ivo from killing him as he wants to interrogate Superman. Mist regrets luring Superman into the trap as Lois and Jimmy rush to the scene but arrive to see the group carry Superman away.
Yeah. So we can probably just kind of talk about episode 8 and 9 collectively. So I'll go ahead and knock out the synopsis for episode 9, unless you wanted to tackle episode 8 individually.
I guess just quick points would be emotion wise, like I was actually surprised that battle got as intense as it did
Okay.
because like I say, when I watch content I'm really into, like I put logic away and I just kind of get lost in what's happening.
For sure.
So for it to be like a ruse the whole time, and for Superman to fall for that the way that he did, and all of them just like beat the living daylights out of him while he hasn't
Mm,
had sleep, he hasn't had enough sun. He, just had an argument with his main trio, so it's like this is the most alone he's been to. Just everything about this episode, I'm glad that I got to watch these back to back because I
sure.
was like, I need resolve right now, and we can talk
Yeah.
about what that resolve is.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. It's like Superman is a character that, like, even when he's getting roughed up a little bit, it's hard to, like, be super fearful for him, but there was
hmm
a legitimate moment where, like, the villains are all encircling him in the sky, and it was like, wow, he's really, like, the odds are stacked against him. He's outnumbered. I'm kind of worried about him. And then when Parasite does the, like, double fisted over the head, like,
Yeah.
pummel onto his chest, and the way he hits the ground and there's that shockwave, it's like, ooh, like, he felt that one.
Yeah.
The one other thing I wanted to hit on about this episode is a little bit lighter. It was kind of cool to see Vicky Vale and, like, this interpretation of her where she's
hmm
not that kind of a person and she's got this history with Perry. But when Lois is leaving to go with Vicky, she calls Perry Chief. And his reaction was just like, "Don't call me that," and, like, shuts the door on her. And then later on, Jimmy's like, "Oh yeah, we call him Chief to annoy him," and she's like, "I love that," and she makes a note of that. Like, I love the small little detail that she would make a note of that.
Who was this? Whatever happened to the second best reporter that was there?
All
That was
right,
me. Yeah, because we haven't seen Perry in a while, so just to see him frustrated to that extent was fun.
right, yeah, yeah, definitely. So I mean, he's not. Superman wasn't the only one to be tricked this episode. Perry fell pretty hook, line, and sinker for Vicky Vale's trickery.
Yeah.
But
Emo! All the
all
SpongeBob
right,
references tonight.
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we can continue to talk about episode 8, but maybe with the context of episode
Yeah.
9 here. So, episode 9, Zero Day Part 2. In flashbacks to Zero Day, the General Waller and their forces were attacked by an alien army led by a Superman like figure codenamed Nemesis Omega before a mysterious event forced the army into a retreat that left their technology behind. In the present, the News Kid Legion helps Lois and Jimmy search for Superman while the General interrogates him for information on Zero Day. From Superman's anguished reaction, the general doubts his connection to it, while a displeased Waller secretly helps the prisoners escape, during which Livewire electrocutes Slade's right eye. A vengeful Ivo attacks Superman, but inadvertently frees him. Flip eventually finds and takes him to safety. Clark believes he was sent to Earth to destroy it, but Lois assures him otherwise. Upon learning Ivo is siphoning the power grid and going on a rampage, Lois and Jimmy use social media to petition Metropolis's citizens to turn off their power, weakening Ivo so Superman can use his newly awakened X-ray vision to locate and remove Ivo from the suit. As Superman and Lois declare their love, Jimmy finds File X. On Checkmate's behalf, Waller demotes the general and gives him Ivo's last invention, the Omega Cannon, with orders to kill Superman.
Waller taking over Task Force S. Surprise, surprise. Didn't see that
Oh yeah,
coming.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, it was bound to happen.
I
Uh,
think the biggest comp that I have for this episode is the Spider-Man video game,
okay,
where Spider-Man has to fight Mr. Negative and the Sinister Six for the first time, and
okay,
just how crazy that cinema got.
sure,
That's how it felt
sure.
like this. It's like I'm genuinely worried. Like I know I have like 8 more hours of gameplay to go, but it's like I'm genuinely worried about this guy right now.
Yeah, yeah, that was a great sequence. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so yeah, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but I'm
Yeah.
recalling that mission and some of the boss battles because it was like Electro and Vulture were paired together, and then Rhino and Scorpion were paired together.
hmm
Yeah, and then you
I
fight
can't
Mister
remember who
Negative
Mr.
and
Negative
Doctor
was with.
Octopus. I think you fight them separately, Mister Negative and Doctor Octopus, because
Yeah,
that.
because Doc like makes the change throughout the game. You're working for him initially.
Yeah, yeah,
Such
but
a good game. Such a good story.
yeah. One of the things the synopsis kind of like left out, but I found to be like one of the most impactful and like kind of heartfelt moments is like, yeah, the general has this moment where he starts to doubt because he sees Superman crying, but like Clark believing that he's a weapon. Like he didn't kind of come up on that with his own. Like the general told him, like, you're no hero. We both know what you are. You're a weapon. And then the next
Hmm.
time he sees Lois, he's like, when you asked me who I am, I didn't know, but now I do. I'm a weapon. It's like I can shoot lasers out of my eyes. I can rip steel into. Like I am
Hmm.
made for destruction. And kind of like coming off of the last episode where public opinion was so easily swayed against him after just a couple of missteps that were, because he was dealing with a newfound superpower. Like, I don't want super hearing. Like, that seems super stressful. Like, hearing
Yeah.
everybody's problems. It kind of reminds me of Bruce Almighty, where Jim Carrey's character inherits the powers of God and can hear everyone's prayers, rather. But
Yeah, I've already got normal
yeah,
stress. I don't need super stress.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, um, on a more lighthearted note, one of the things I noticed about this episode that I benefited from the rewatch on is when, and it's one thing I appreciate about this show, when these some of these episodes are like extremely action heavy, like especially with like Superman going toe to toe with some like truly powerful beings. Lois and Jimmy are never really sidelined all that much. Like they're always given agency and given something to do.
Hmm.
So the fact that they get to use like their social media presence to kind of unite the citizens of Metropolis, which is something we've seen before, like the citizens of a city like kind of come together to help our hero that's you know, taking on more than he can chew. But when they were on the phone, like I made a special point to like look at the comments that were like scrolling around, and one of them said deep fake. And the fact that it said
Yeah,
that was just,
yeah, I saw
I,
that one.
I love that.
Yeah, those I wish I could remember them, but those were like fun to read because some were
Yeah.
like motivational and some were just like screw. Like they threw the trolls in there really
Yeah. Oh,
well.
yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
That so logic did come in a little bit on this scene too, and I was like, "Shut up, Sue!
Okay.
Shut up, Sue! Shut up, Sue!" Because I was thinking like as a protocol, like somebody had to have figured out that there was power, and it's like why didn't like the police like order the power to be shut off at that point? Like that's happened in
Sure.
different situations in different movies and stuff. So that one, and it amazed me that Lois and Jimmy made it all the way from the Daily Planet to the park before like any police officers or park security or anybody like started like guiding people away.
Sure.
Like, hey, evacuate! Stop recording these aliens fighting each other. So,
Right. Right. Right.
those
That's
are
a
a
good.
couple of times where it's like, okay, I get it. You have 20 minutes. You have to get to the point. There's like a vibe that
Yeah.
we're going with, but that was when
Yeah.
like my logic was just like seeping out of its timeout corner, and I'm just like, stop, stop, stop.
That's funny because I had a similar thought during kind of the same sequence. So we're at they show the Daily Planet and like the lights are off, so there's no power, but they're still on like some kind of computer watching like
Yeah,
the update. And I was like,
it
how
wasn't
does
even a laptop.
you? It's like you didn't. Yeah, it was a desktop, like a hollow screen desktop. And it's like you cut all the other power, but you still are running this computer. Like I get you want to stay informed, but that seems like an unnecessary risk.
It's like we don't know where the switch for the backup generator is, so we still have this. So,
Yeah, yeah,
little things like that kind of got to me, but it
yeah,
was. I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
obviously, it wasn't deterring in any way, but it was
Oh,
just
sure,
enough to be like, hmm. So
sure,
is it
sure.
like Gotham's police is just like so useless that crime gets so crazy when Metropolis is so safe that the officers just have nothing to do? It's like, oh crap, we
Mm,
have work to do now.
mm-hmm,
We have
mm-hmm.
supervillains to deal with at this point. We weren't qualified for this.
Right, right. Well, while we're on the subject of gripes, like these are super minor, but one
Yeah,
thing I
it's
did
just funny.
find, yeah, but one thing I did kind of find a little disappointing is like so in these two episodes, I would say Slade didn't feature super prominently, but we did see how he how he lost his eye at the hands of Livewire, and they had a history. Like we saw that scene in like one of the like earliest episodes where he was like threatening her and basically forcing her hand to be subservient to Task Force X. But
Hmm.
like you have Slade like involved in all the fights and in the breakout and everything like that. But they did not give him any lines of dialogue. Like I checked the credits both times around, and they
Oh,
did not. Chris Parnell was not given any lines, which I get. The show has a budget; they have to cut costs where they can. But it's like, oh, come on! Like if you're gonna have Slade feature so prominently, at
yeah.
least throw him a line here or there. But you know,
Yeah, it was cool seeing like when there was a like the prison break right away. He just threw on like the first like vest that he found and just got like a couple weapons. And was trying when when I talk about how I don't like seeing Superman OP, I do like the what Young Justice does really well of like showing how like the Bat family holds up with super being. So for them to kind of add that flavor into this, where it's like, yeah, Slade's a human, but that's not stopping him from like going against this incredible tech and super people and all that stuff. So it was cool just being
Sure.
like, all right, time for me to get to work. Like I'm still getting paid here. And
Yeah.
sure, he got his ass handed to him, but he was able to hold his own like here and there as well. So little
Yeah.
things like that I really appreciate.
Yeah, likewise, likewise, and it also shows his limitations because I think it was in the episode prior, but at some point, like when Superman was being overwhelmed, like he had to kind of like clear the field a little bit, and like he did something to the ground, and you just kind of see Slade off to the side and like some rubble, and it's like, yeah, when Superman decides to like turn it up to 11, like
Hmm.
he's not going to stand a chance. So,
Yeah, because it's morals that tones Superman back.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Another thing that's just kind of coming to mind now is so in episode 8 when Vicky finds her angle and she finds her interview subject that's going to the bias source that's going to speak negatively about Superman. It's this character Alex who was like Ivo's assistant the last time we saw him in episode 4.
Okay.
And I can't take credit for this. This is a rumor that or like a theory that I saw on the internet, but people are speculating that given the nature of this guy's speech and his ability to really point out the inherent danger of Superman, what if Alex is short for Alexander and he may go by Lex in the
Mm.
future because, we have not gotten his last name as far as I'm aware.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see a whole origin story pursue. And if he's
Yeah.
still at the facility, he has access to some of the technology and wants to outpower. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
more with that.
For sure. Likewise. Likewise. That'd be pretty cool. The other thing, so I kind of talked about on the last recording that we did how the 3 episodes we selected paired really nicely together. And I think these 3 episodes paired pretty nicely together as well because it just kind of furthered my speculation that we're going to get the revelation that the general is Lois's father because when Lois is seeing these other versions of herself, one of them says like this one is ready to talk to her dad and like make amends with her dad and reconnect with her dad. And then when the general has his flashback to 0 day, he's like Waller gives him shit because he's on the phone like talking to someone. He's like, I'll be
Mm.
home soon, which I assume is his wife. And Waller says something to the effect like, your judgment's being clouded or you're being sympathetic to him because he reminds you of her. And it's like, who is her? And, he makes the point that like, if he ages the same as we are, like he wouldn't be old enough to have been there for 0 day. So that makes me think like he's probably around the same age as his daughter, i.e. Lois Lane.
Fear leads to the dark side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. 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 And dark side may be coming. I one thing I am realizing that I didn't do that I meant to do is when we saw the flashbacks to 0 day, the Kryptonians had their own versions of like the mechs that we see in the future, but they had a symbol on their chest, and I was like, "Oh, what is that symbol? That seems vaguely familiar, but I can't place it." I was
Mm. I think I
wondering if
was
I'd seen it.
just in shock of like how much of the stuff was Kryptonian.
Sure,
Because this is a
sure.
cool because I genuinely don't know like where they're going with the story of like having an invader that came already at some point and who that was and like does he have an older brother that we don't know of, like
Yeah, yeah. I'm
is this
honest.
Zod, was he like
That's
yeah.
that's kind of where my mind went. I'm not super confident on it, but I was like, if it's anybody, like it could potentially be Zod, and like that white blast that we see that causes everything to shut down in the portal to like go away. It's like, was that Krypton exploding? I don't.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, um, I don't know. I didn't really have an answer for that one. They showed the close up on the Kryptonian's face where he was like emitting the laser
Mm-hmm.
out of his face, and I thought it was his like face mask opening up, and I thought we were going to see somebody,
Yeah.
but not the case. But another thought that's just coming to me right now as I'm like spitballing here is like, so if the general indeed is Lois's father, what if this version of Jor-El is not such a good guy? And this version of Superman actually was sent to Earth as a weapon, but he decides to not go that route because we've seen there are evil versions of Superman out there. Maybe there's an evil version of Jor-El, and like
Hmm.
both of our protagonists here have to deal with father figures that are not exactly savory. Like that could be an interesting fold and do enough to keep the story fresh.
Yeah, I could see Jor-El being an antagonist. But like obviously we couldn't understand what he was saying, but in the in his presence in that hologram, like he didn't really seem to.
It seemed like he was barking at
Yeah,
Clark. Yeah.
this
So.
could be like a Raditz and Goku situation.
Oh, sure, sure.
I was like, I know you get that much.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Special beam cannon.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So.
like because despite knowing that planet Vegeta had been destroyed, was still like doing his thing, right? And then came and was just
Mm,
kind of like, all right, time for you to get back to work. So it's like, what if Jor-El or Zod or a cousin of Superman that's not Kara? What if it is Kara?
mm.
Is actually coming to like be like, all right, bud, like you're an adult now, you got your powers, time to get back to work. Let's invade this place.
Yeah, that's a good thought. It totally could be Kara because that makes me think of Injustice. Injustice 2.
Yeah.
She was presented as like a pawn of Brainiac and was initially, yeah, an antagonist. That could be an interesting way to take it. Yeah. But I don't. I will say, like in a lot of ways, like episode 9 kind of felt like a season finale. So I find myself kind of like
Hmm.
curious, like what kind of story are we going to get in this final episode? Is it going to
Yeah.
be set up for a next season? Because by all accounts, like this show has been received very well. So I have to
Hmm.
imagine it's going to get a second season. I don't know how the strikes might impact that. I don't think this show, the writers are a part of the the Writers Guild of America. I do believe they're in the Writers Guild, but with like our main character being voiced by Jack Quaid, I don't know if being on strike impacts his ability to do any voice recording for a show like this. I'd have to do some additional research, but
Or if he's supporting writers and just doesn't
yeah,
do it
yeah,
based off of
even
that, and
yes, a show of solidarity. Yeah, I
a
could
lot of
totally see that.
factors.
Yeah, yeah. But even if we
So
had to wait a while on the show, like it would be tough, and I'd definitely be excited to see more. But if it takes waiting to get a quality product, I'd be more than willing to.
yeah, we wait like what 3-4 years for Young Justice seasons.
Right. Exactly.
I started that show in 2013, 14.
Mm,
We're on season 4.
right.
So, with you saying that this episode felt like a season finale, would you want him to know more about Krypton or translate his dad's message or anything like that at the end of this one and that be a cliffhanger? Or do you want more Krypton revelation stuff to come later and deal with more Earth stuff in the end of this season?
That's a good question. I think it all depends on how it's executed and delivered. Like that could be a really good cliffhanger, like to end the season on, because it's been such a strong question of like who am I? Who is Superman? Like I've said multiple times, like I feel like the title "My Adventures with Superman," like it's talking about Clark just as much as the rest of us. Like
Mhm.
he is just discovering who Superman is. So, yeah, if they do it right and set that up for future seasons, it could be done really well. I guess the only real speculation I have in terms of like this final episode, like talking about this parentage and whatnot, like I do feel like they're going to have to address like the general and who Lois's father is and everything like that. But I also I'm thinking like we haven't really seen Martha or Jonathan Kent since like the first couple of episodes, so I feel like they have to like show up in some way because I don't want to, yeah, I guess I don't want to put too much negativity out there or too much speculation, but having Jonathan Kent still be around while Superman is actively being Superman is definitely a departure from the usual story. So I kind of feel like something has to happen in that realm, and I don't know if it'll
Okay,
be the way they end this season, but I do feel like they need to build up that relationship with Jonathan just a little bit more if that is something that they're going to play with down the line.
fair.
Yeah.
I would like to see both of them meet the girlfriend, though.
Oh, that's actually, now that you say that, that is the episode I want. I want
Yeah.
Meet the Parents, My Adventures with Superman style. Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. All right. Did you have anything else you want to say about these ones?
uh, I'm sure once we stop recording, everything else will come in.
Okay. Okay.
I
I
haven't got
guess
to hear Gotham Gazette, and I am just
sure.
kind of curious. Like, just tease a little bit, like what's going on in Gotham. Like, I don't even need to see anything. You don't have to drop Bruce Wayne, but it's like just give me a little taste of what's going on in Gotham right now.
Yeah,
What's it
yeah.
like? Paint me a picture.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because Vicky Vale is often portrayed as one of Bruce Wayne's like on again, off again love interests. So it'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see if this is a world that has a Batman out there that's been operating, and if so, how long has he been operating, or what
Yeah,
have you. And like you said, I don't need it all to be spelled out for me, but if they just want to drop a few teases and give us some
yeah,
inclination of what that sister city kind of looks like, that'd be pretty cool. The one other thing I kind of want to bring up is and another reason I thought these three episodes paired so nicely is like there was this notion of like Clark wanting to be normal, and like Mixie Spitalik tells him like, oh, like he says he wants to just have a normal date with her, and she's like, oh, he's like, you're never going to be normal. Like the one thing that like all the Clarks and Superman have in common is that they're not
yeah,
normal. They're weird, they're alienated, they're alone, and just like the downtrodden look that gives him. And then later on, like when he's becoming overwhelmed and like has the incident where he causes the car accident with the truck, like Lois says something like, you could just try to be normal for a while, and the way that hits him,
yeah.
it's like, ooh, I felt that. And like she feels so terrible later on, like when he's missing, like the last thing I said to him was awful. So
All the kids helping out.
yeah,
We didn't mention them. They were so adorable. Like the way that she
yeah,
had to like talk Lois into letting them help. It was just,
right,
it was so
yeah,
wholesome, dude.
yeah, it was great. It was. I dig it.
The way that they were trying to like sabotage Vicky and like take her to all the place, like she introduced her to the kids and just like the old lady and like all the
Yeah,
stuff she didn't want to see.
right. Yeah, because then after she has her interview with Alex, she's like, they're like, you can't publish that. He's a biased source, and she's like, oh, and all the people you took me to see weren't. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's just savage line.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to what we were saying about Gotham, it's one of those things like because these creators are doing such a fantastic job with this show, like I would love to see them get to work on the other superheroes as well. Because
Oh
could you
yeah.
imagine Alfred's dialogue with these
Okay.
writers, and
Yeah.
then just Hal Jordan and Barry Allen like on their own?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
The day in the
Um,
life of like those characters, like it, if that's the next extended universe that we get,
yeah.
like it should be this that they don't, it's Justice League War style, they don't know, they've heard like rumors about each other and they probably know that the other person exists, but they're just doing the things in their own city. Like just
Mm-hmm.
make the world smaller again, like everything can just happen in continental United States. We don't need to have like world ending stuff.
Sure.
We
Sure.
don't even need to have any kind of team up, but like if they handed this studio a blank check and just said have fun with these characters, I would be so for it.
Yeah, yeah. I love all the characters you brought up, and I found my mind immediately going to Green Arrow and like tone of this show. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Arrow and I love the darker take on Oliver Queen and everything like
Hmm.
that. But if this show could like really get that fun loving and quippy like Oliver Queen, like I think
Yeah.
they would nail it. And I came to the realization that I think part of the reason that I gravitated towards that is because Lois had the line too, and she like found out it was Vicky Vale she was going to be shadowing. She was like, oh, she's the one that busted the case about like the Queen Industries or Queen Consolidated, like whatever it was, the embezzlement or whatever was happening there. So it's like
Hmm.
we know that Queen Industries is a thing too. They're
Yeah.
setting up the building blocks.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This I'm sad that like we only have one episode left because they've done such an incredible job and have just exceeded like all expectations for what I had for it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm simultaneously excited, but it will be a bit of a sad day when we can no longer talk about My Adventures with Superman. But our plan is to cover the finale episode and kind of do a season review as a whole. So on that note, I would encourage everybody, if you've been watching along with us, we got some My Adventures with Superman feedback early on initially with those first like 2 or 3 episodes, but definitely encourage our listeners, if you've been, watching alongside us and enjoying these conversations, we'd love to include your thoughts and feedback as part of the conversation. So hit us up on any of our social medias or shoot us an email at animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com, and we will include you in the conversation. You can even send a voice memo, voice note, voicemail to our email, and we'll play it on the air. Anything you want to let the people know about that you've got going on outside of Animation Deliberation?
Yeah, NFL season is back on, so my time with 323 with Reed Murphy is now resumed. So I'll be doing the weekly NFL hangover and just talking about games and people. So if you're a sports guy or gal or sports person, just go check that out. The date's uncertain now just because these storms have kind of been messing things up, but I am going to be on Peeves Gap Fest to talk some Harry Potter with
Right on.
my Fantasy Heroes partner, Sarah Day. They are a podcast that are reading the books, watching the movies, and kind of doing a comparison on like what they want to see from the new Harry Potter Max series that's going to be coming out. So, as a person who didn't read the books growing up, they're
Right.
having me on to talk about a person who like only watched the movies and is now reading the books for the first time. So, I'm
Nice.
going to be just flipping things around on that show.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Very cool.
keep an
Very
eye out on
cool.
that.
Will do. Will do. As for me, I'll just plug, I'll plug our show. If you like what we're doing here, like the show, share the show, give us a 5-star review. That'd be great. And check out all the shows on the Stranded Panda Network, particularly Multiverse News is a show that I contribute to pretty much every week. And that show is still in the initial stages, still growing. So if you want to show that show some love as well, highly encourage you to do that. And yeah, thank you for all the support and for listening, and keep tuning in. That's TOONIN.
And as always, stay whelmed. Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.